Hi, Sandy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. Today we are going to be talking about the new 30th anniversary edition of Icon by Paradise Lost, which has been re-recorded by the band in commemoration or remembrance or whatever you want to call it in of the 30 years. Now the question obviously has to be asked of, well, the album is already out there, so why re-record an existing album? Kirk, do you want to give us the background on this one?
Yeah, so they're very candid about the reasons for this. When they signed to Music for Nations in 1992, they knew that the contract they're in, they wouldn't own the publishing rights of the artwork for their albums. So they couldn't reissue this album with the same artwork and with the same recordings. So the best thing to do was re-record it. They now own the masters for it, and they're doing a special vinyl edition for the fans. So I can understand from an economic perspective why they've done this.
So, have we all listened to the new album or the new re-recorded version?
Okay. Probably the most playthroughs I've done for a review, to be honest. But that's because I absolutely love the original, and this is pretty damn good as well.
Okay, so I'm going to let you guys talk about this a little bit, because we have had conversations about this off camera before we started this, and this is why this has become an episode. You guys, I mean, I have listened to the album, and I knew the album to some degree. I knew some of the songs, but I hadn't listened to it in a massive amount. But I have listened to the original version, and of course this new re-recorded myself. But I want to get your viewpoints on it. So Andy, talk about the album, the new re-recorded version.
I mean, Kirk's given a great summary as to the reasons why. 30 years since it was released, 1993, the original, which I remember and you know, I know very, very well. To me, it's the last Paradise Lost album I really got into before they kind of went in a slightly different direction. You know, I had the long sleeve, I had the vinyl, I've still got the CD, and it's a fantastic album. I mean, unlike other re-recorded albums that I've got and I've heard before, it is pretty much note for note, sound for sound, you know, replica of the original album. The only differences I've noted down is Nick Holmes' vocals are obviously different than they were 30 years ago, and there's a very slight change in the guitar tone of Gregor McIntosh, you know, the sort of leads and the melodies that he supplies on the album. But you know, I haven't got a problem with that really. That, you know, we've discussed the reasons why they've done it. I mean, one thing I've taken away from listening to this new version and really studying it and comparing it to the last one, the original one, is the quality of Nick Holmes's lyrics. I mean, I've you know, there's some real standout lines from some of my favorite tracks, you know, that were ingrained in your memory. I've got some examples here from Joy to the Emptiness, mighty and proud, reaching up to touch the shroud. I mean, that's something that I'll, you know, is ingrained in my brain as a great metal line in a great metal song. But when I was following the lyrics to the original CD booklet, you know, Kirk, you can probably expand on this because you're the wordsmith. Nick Holmes he's not creating characters, he's not creating stories like Aaron Stainthorpe and My Dying Bride. They're kind of sort of lines and words that are not really linked together, but it's not incomprehensible nonsense, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure you'll discuss the lyrics as well. But I mean, the album itself, again, on our discussions off camera, I think we all agreed the first 5 songs are absolutely brilliant. There's a few fillers that I could do without, you know, from my point of view. 13 songs, the Christian sort of iconography. 13 was that 12 disciples plus Jesus? Is that sort of a sort of deliberate sort of point they put there? But it is an absolutely great album. I really enjoyed the re-recorded version that they're going to be putting out. big fan of the band from the early days. I had the demos and you know all those preceding albums and EPs. Yes, it's a great addition to their catalogue of albums, and the fans will absolutely lap it up. I'm not sure how many versions coming out. As you said, Kurt, there's a vinyl. I don't know if there'll be CDs or anything else or accompanying merchandise. I've not looked into that, but yeah, really glad to see that in our inbox and you know, given a chance to get an early listen on it.
Kirk?
Yeah, so it comes out on the 1st of December, doesn't it? And what's impressive about this band, other than the current drummer, Guido Montanarini, the band is still the same personnel from that first album in 1990. So that's 4 members that played on the 1990 album, and they're still in the band now. That is, it's almost unheard of, isn't it? So that's impressive. To me, there are some differences. They are subtle. The growl of the bass guitar is a lot louder, certainly on Embers Fire and Forging Sympathies, and that song True Belief, which was a single, wasn't it? So yeah, I agree with Andy. This is where Paradise Lost are in the mid-90s. They've really transcended beyond the extreme metal and then the gothic metal, and this really is the beginning of them becoming a commercial behemoth, certainly in mainland Europe. This is probably the last album before 2009 where they're still writing colossal guitar riffs as well. I think after this, the vocals come to the fore, certainly on Draconian Times, and then they go in this Depeche Mode experimental direction for 4 albums, really, don't they? With a bit of industrial in. This album, I totally agree with Andy. I know we're not here to give a review, but I am going to pick up on what you said. Couple of fillers on here that are absolutely not needed. Doesn't need to be 13 tracks in length. This, to me, has always been a classic 8 out of 10 album that should be a 10 out of 10, because the first half of this album, there is nothing in the 1990s of this standard, in my opinion. It is incredible. Certainly songs like Forging Sympathy, Colossal Rains. The one that stands out for me, though, and it's actually on side B, is track number 12, Christendom, with the female vocals. And I looked at this woman, and she's never appeared on any other album. And I'm guessing that she's re-recorded the vocals here. She's called Denise Bernard. And there's some great wordplay in the chorus, Andy. They betray, uphold the law, and accuse the future. And the way that Nick Holmes delivers that is just anthemic. You know, that's your Sisters of Mercy song on this record. Dave, though, because you're not as enamored with this album, what do you think of it? Obviously, the re-recording, but can you give us your thoughts on the album? Because I don't think this is the best one in the discography. Most of the fan base do. For me, Shades of God, its predecessor, is far superior.
So, in my opinion, Draconian Times is better because that's more my styles. But I do like Icon. There are elements of Icon. There are tracks in there that I wasn't a big fan of, but there wasn't any songs I hated. So I can tell you there wasn't anything where I was like, I need to skip that or anything like that. So yeah, it's a good album. Listening to the original, and then obviously the re-recorded, you're talking about the differences that you're talking about are so negligible. Yes, I mean, you talk about like the bass sound, but if you've got a decent pair of like studio speakers like mine, which are a bit more bass heavy in all cases, you're not noticing that. And if anything, you might find that the bass rumble's too loud. So you'd end up having to adjust that, because it's all down to depending on what they try to do in the master. Here's where my problem is with this. Now, if you don't own this album and you wanted to buy an Icon, you went, do you know what, I'm actually building a new collection, then yes, I would buy the re-recorded version. But if I already own this CD, there is absolutely no reason for me to buy the new album at all. If I already own Icon from 30 years ago, there is not one thing on this new album that makes me go, yes, I need to buy it. And that's what I have a big problem with. Because then, what is Paradise Lost's point in doing this? If it's only for the few people that might want vinyl, they're going to lose a load of money here, potentially, because unless they charge an absolute fortune for these vinyls, and I have seen bands charge up to like £80 for a vinyl, which is absolutely insane to think about an album. I think that was Godsmack's last album, was like $69.99 in HMV. I'm like, are you fucking having a laugh. That takes the piss. So, unless you're talking about they're doing it for the vinyl collectors, most people are still streaming. They're not. We haven't seen that massive swing back to CDs and vinyls. So, the only other people they could be are the CD collectors who have most likely already got the original Icon, and you can still buy the original Icon on CD. So it's not like it's no longer in print. It's no longer available to buy. So you can still get it. So it's either a cash grab by the band to maximize on the 30 years, which if it is, I'd be pissed about that, and that would really push me off Paradise Lost. If it is just going down the LP, I don't understand why they do it. And the other thing is, when I've seen bands do this, like we had it recently with Lacuna Coil, who did their reissue of their earlier album. I can't remember the name of the album, but they also, but they did it as they had a second album which had they had remixes or reimaginings of those songs. So they gave.
No, is this the original, Dave?
Huh?
It was re-recorded 20-year anniversary, pretty much like this. But they included the original version as well.
But they did it in a different way, yeah. So they took all the songs that they did it from then, but what they then did was they completely reimagined them, so they didn't sound anything like,
to a certain degree. Yeah.
So they sat, half of them had weird like synth sections, and so they'd given you something completely, whether you liked that or not, but you had the original album and you got this new idea. When we first talked about it, I thought, oh well, maybe what you'll do is you'll get a live CD of like the whole, all the album from a live performance. That would be cool. Then you've got a 2 CD, you've got the new recorded, and you've got a CD of the live performance. Or you'll have some rarities, or there'll be something extra in the CD. And then I looked at it, I was like, no, it's the same 13 songs. There's nothing extra.
There is a double vinyl, Dave, that they've said there's going to be. They've not announced what's on the second the second disc.
But that might change my opinion if there's a benefit. But at the moment, based on the information we've got, there is no reason, if I already own this album, to buy this album again, and that's what I don't get from the band. It wasn't significantly changed enough as far as like the re-recording to make it. I understand they had to do it because they couldn't print a new album because they don't own them. The only way to get a new album out was to re-record it. That's the only option they had. So I do understand that. But did they really need to reissue on the 30th anniversary? Why not just go out and do a tour? A 30th anniversary tour, and that would have been fine. You don't need to put another album out.
Can I just bring a third factor in? You've mentioned too. Is it a cash grab?
Yeah.
What was the other issue you said?
I don't know. I was ranting. I don't know.
Collectors.
What was it, Andy?
Vinyl and CD collectors. Just complete
collectors.
Super fans. Completists.
Yeah. I think I'm going to defend the integrity of the band here. There's a third angle to this. This is a fuck you to the record industry. This comes into the public consciousness with Taylor Swift, doesn't it? Where she re-recorded that album, was it 2 years ago? Because she recognized she didn't own the rights, and she made shitloads of money off that, and it was a very clever thing to do. So we understand, don't we now? If you look at some of those contracts bands were signing, it says in perpetuity. That means you will never own the publishing rights. So they're really drawing attention to some of these. Most contracts were like that in the record industry at the height of CD sales. The 90s was a glorious period for that business model. So I'd like to defend the integrity of the band and say, do you know what? They're just saying fuck you to the record industry. They're going to enjoy revisiting these songs. Some of them they've probably never played since 1993. So there's that benefit to it. And then there's the collectors. So I definitely agree with you. But if I wouldn't use the term cash grab, it does make sense. You still need to be making money from your art. It's yours. It's exclusive.
I mean,
so I'm not going to criticize them for that.
I mean, it really depends. I would guess, based on Paradise Lost's longevity, they probably have their own recording studio built somewhere that they use.
Yeah, Gregor McIntosh did the guitars and bass at his own studio for this album.
So I would say that the cost of actually recording this was probably negligible. Overall, if you think about the overall cost of recording an album nowadays, so it potentially didn't cost them a lot. The only way that the whole idea about owning the rights to the songs, yes, they will, but they'll only own the rights to the songs on the re-recorded version, not the original song rights. They don't still own the song rights in the original recordings, but only on the re-recorded. So they would need somehow to get Spotify to stop promoting the original Icon.
No, both of them there.
Because otherwise, then you've got to tell your fans, don't listen to that original, only listen to the re-recorded, so that they get the streaming platform revenue.
But Andy's always going to go to the original. I am. That 1993 album's so special, Andy, isn't it? Yeah. Clearly, you're going to go to that.
But then the idea of the fuck you to the record company doesn't work if everyone goes back to the original. Because then the record company just goes... Because then what happens, do you know what? The record company's actually making more money because now everyone's comparing the fucking two. They go, wow. And so suddenly all these original versions of it...
Yeah, I mean, Sony BMG have done a reissue. They reissued it in 2006. So they've already done their reissue.
Yeah.
So there's 3 versions out there.
I think it would be interesting. I don't think there's been enough clarity from the band about they've been pretty broad about the fact they didn't own the rights. That's why they've re-recorded it. But I still don't understand the why re-record it. Why put it out there? The album's out there. It's
I think these vinyls, these CDs, these accompanying T-shirts, which I think I've just found out they are doing, they'll fly out. You know. Yeah. So it's probably ticking all the boxes of all the points that you two have made regarding the reasons why. And just to summarise, I haven't got a problem with what they're doing. To be honest, I've got some really, really good re-recorded versions 20 years after the original. You know, Exodus, Bonded by Blood, Flotsam and Jetsam, No Place for Disgrace. They are markedly different from the originals. This is. I don't know if I was pleasantly surprised or disappointed, but I was surprised how close to the original this was.
And do you know what, Andy, when I was looking at people's comments on YouTube, that was the main thing. They're like, oh my god, they've got the sound almost exactly like the original album. I'm like, but that's not what you want, surely. When you're
I don't even want a reimagining of it though. So I know, Andy, you like these, don't you?
Not
Can you imagine if we'd done this and down-tuned the guitars even further and changed some of the tempos? Andy, remember that My Dying Bride album, Evinta, was a reimagining of various songs, wasn't it? But you don't actually listen to that one. I thought you'd be into that.
Yeah, I wasn't after a reimagining. I mean, Dave, you made a good point about the Lacuna Coil one. Yes, thinking back, they were markedly different. They were different vocal patterns, different vocal deliveries, particularly from the male singer. But I don't know. I was perhaps looking for a, if Nick Holmes delivered this in the vocal style that he did with the songs on Plague Within, for example, or Medusa, that would have been fucking awesome. But he's gone back to 1993 and try and replicate his vocal style from that, which is there's very few sort of harsh vocal moments in that, if any.
He sounds better now, though, doesn't he, Dave?
Oh yeah.
You've played them back to back. Sorry, you've played them in parallel. His voice is still in flux in 1993. He's still discovering it.
No, I did like his vocals.
So I think he's a lot better on this one, because there's when I was listening to the original today on my headphones, there's a few moments where if you just listen to them in isolation, his voice is cracked when he's trying to reach the notes, but the guitar distortion hides it. He's so confident on this one. And there's a song on there, Forging Sympathy. And I always remember the first time I heard it, in the middle 8, he does this like Americana type grunge voice. And it just is completely out of place. So when I listened to this re-recording, he has kept a bit of that in there, but you just think straight away, oh, it's Nick Holmes, because you can identify it. And so it's interesting because he was working out how to evolve his vocals, because it's a big change from Gothic to Shades of God, which isn't really clean, but it's not doing the growls. Yeah. This is the first one with clean vocals. And then Andy, when you get to 1 second, it's just Gothic baritone vocals, isn't it? It's completely dispensed with any aggression.
Yeah. Can I just raise a couple of other points?
Yeah.
You said, we both agreed there were, a couple of filler tracks. You said Christendom was one of your favourites. Despite my love of sort of female vocals on this type of music, I put that down as one of my filler tracks. I don't like Christendom, nor Weeping Words, and Shallow Seasons. They're all in that sort of last quarter of the album. I don't say I hate them, but they would ones I'd strip out. And also, going back to Nick Holmes' lyrics, and you can both address these points, he's very clever in as much as I think there's only 3 songs where the title of the song is featured in the actual lyrics. There's some paraphrasing, Forging Sympathy, there's a line that's very nearly that, but it isn't, and he does that a few times throughout the album. I just think that's a great artistic skill. As someone who's having a stab at lyrics, I was really impressed when I delved in and actually sort of followed the songs, which I haven't done before, surprisingly, with this album. Followed the lyrics with playing the album, and it's just mesmerizing what he's come up with. Because do you want to follow on from that? The style of writing that he's using there, because he's not creating stories or characters; it's just phrasing, isn't it?
Yeah, some of it is cryptic, which will draw some criticism. I like the imagery that he evokes, like on Ember's Fire, hold back desire for danger. It's just great wordplay, isn't it? When you listen to how he sings that, I think they're ambivalent enough for you to make your own interpretation of them. But what's unique is they're really anthemic as well, aren't they? I think Draconian Times lyrically is a lot easier to really get your head round, isn't it? This one, there does seem to be some iconoclastic religious terminology in there, doesn't there? But I to me, the wordplay is impressive. The meanings behind them are really harder to connect to. This is something I think, Dave, that you would be frustrated by. Whereas Draconian Times, it's clear what the songs are, more clear what the songs are about.
A band, I haven't really broken down the lyrics of Paradise Lost, not on this album anyway. There's one band out there that does that sort of thing where I've literally tried to break down the lyrics and not once ever got an idea of what the fuck the song's about after reading the lyrics, and that band's In Flames. In Flames, it talks complete and utter gibberish, the whole song. Every lyric, just literally every line is some sort of statement. And then the next line has nothing to do with the line before it. And then the one after that has nothing. And you're like, I don't understand anything that's happening in here. And I will try and break it down time after time again. And those sort of lyrics drive me up the wall. Because I'm like, I don't understand where you're coming from. There must be there are a lot. I'm sure there are people out there that love to try and really get down and understand the whole flow of it. And I'm like, you're making me work way too hard to enjoy a song here. I just want to read the lyrics and go, oh, I know what you're on about. Brilliant. I love the journey. I can enjoy it now. I shouldn't be sitting there scratching my head after half an hour of reading the lyrics going, no, I still have no idea what this song's about. I don't get it. But yeah, Paradise Lost, if that's what the lyrics are like and that I to be honest, I just enjoy the vibe of the songs.
Yeah, the lyrics are impressive. I think the one that stands out, Andy, for me is True Belief, because you can really get that sense of the individual being bereft, that tragedy. The tragedy of life is that there isn't a God. That is the tragedy. I always got that as the message from that song. I just think they're a bit more succinct, aren't they, on Draconian Times? Certainly songs like Forever Failure.
Yeah, I love that album because it's a lot more accessible. I have a final question for you guys then. So, Andy, do you own the CD of the original Paradise Lost Icon?
I do.
And you've obviously got it, Kirk. So will you guys be buying the CD of the new version of Icon?
I've obviously we got access to it, so I've got it on my computer and a drive. But I might, if it's not silly money, treat myself to the vinyl.
You'll do it for a different alternative, like?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting back into sort of rebuilding a vinyl collection that I once had. So yeah. Again, if it's available and not silly money, just as another slot on the shelf, complete the collection, I might get the CD. So yeah, I probably will say I'll end up buying.
You would have a buy it.
Yeah.
What about you, Kurt? Would you buy a new version of it?
No, I won't buy it on CD, and I don't have a turntable. If I had if I was building a record collection, I definitely would buy the vinyl, but I don't plan to do that anytime soon. So. No from it. That's the same for you, Dave?
Well, no, see, I don't own it on CD, and if I was buying CDs at this point in time, I would buy the new version, because why buy the old one when you've got the new one and it supports the band? So I understand doing that. But if I had the other one, so if we were doing our scoring of the bin it, trade it, stream it, or buy it, so if I don't own the album, I'd buy it. If I do own the album, I'd bin it, because it's pointless for me it's a pointless CD for someone who's
Can we
already
do a
got the
verdict
CD.
then? Let's do a verdict on it. Let's do the. I know we weren't really going to do as a review. It'll be interesting because we've got to bin it.
Fine. Yeah,
Let's go around.
my score on it is a bin it because I don't see the purpose of it because of that particular reason, because of the amount of people. If you get the only benefit to buying it would be for the record people, because you can't get it because that album at the time didn't come out on vinyl, so that's the only reason to do it, is to get it for that vinyl, for the vinyl collectors. But if you're a CD person, you can still buy the original, and you'll probably get it for cheaper than the new one's going to come out on like eBay or Amazon used or whatever. So I would have to give this album a bin it, unfortunately.
Go on, Andy. What were you going to award it?
Well, just to recap what I said after Dave's last question, yeah, buy it.
You're a buy it.
I'd trade it. Ooh, where does that leave us?
It leaves us very confused, is what that does. I don't think we could actually give a score for it.
I think mine's the middle one, isn't it? In terms of, I think it's a trade it then. I think it's a trade it, isn't it? Bin
Doesn't it bump up to a stream it?
Bin it, a trade it, a bit. It's somewhere between a trade it and so this is the thing. It doesn't make sense as a streaming one because it sounds so close. The quality of compression as well. When you compress it down to the streaming platforms, you are really not going to hear any difference between the old version and the new re-recorded. It's going to be so negligible on the quality that you're just not going to hear it. So I don't think we give it a final score, but
trade it overall.
I think we need to understand a little bit more about Paradise Lost thought process behind this. If it is just for the vinyl guys and that's what they're trying to do, then fine. It makes sense. But yeah, it's left a slight sour taste in my mouth, this album. Not enough to put me off Paradise Lost. I love the band. But just a little bit of like, question mark over that, I think. Anyway, if you like our video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you on another video sometime very soon. Take care.